Human trafficking. It's the second largest criminal enterprise in the world. But what is this issue of human trafficking that we hear about on the news? Well, the legal definition of human trafficking is really structured around what we call the AMP model. AMP, or action, means, and purpose. We have our action, which is done to a person through a means. And those means can be either force, fraud, or coercion. So in the United States, we have our action, we have our means, force, fraud, or coercion for a particular purpose, which is either sex trafficking or labor trafficking. So who are these traffickers targeting? Well, human trafficking does not discriminate. According to the United States Department of Justice, more than 50% of all sex trafficking victims are under the age of 18. It's important to understand that traffickers look for three things: accessibility, suggestibility, and vulnerability. Let's hear from convicted sex offender John Doe.
What I would attempt to do in order to approach a child on the internet would be to find out what their interests are and attempt to relate to their interests. And many times I've found out that the children online are children that didn't have people listening to them at home, people who were not interested in their interest or things that were bothering them at that time. So it would be easy to maintain that conversation because I believe that many of them were looking for the opportunity to have someone to be able to relate to them.
How are they being groomed? Well, traffickers have a very specific methodology. It's a three-step process. First, traffickers will scout out potential victims. They'll manipulate those individuals, and then they'll trap them in a world of exploitation. I want to share a story of success with you. This was a young girl that I worked with many years ago when I was still a police officer. Her name was Maria. Maria was 17 years old at the time. By all accounts, Maria was a normal teenage girl. Now, Maria was working at a local retail store, and it was in working at that retail store that she was approached by a young man. The young man befriended her. Over the course of several months, Maria believed that they were in a loving relationship. He shared her hopes and dreams, but those were all lies. He was using that to gain her trust, to make her believe that he loved her. One night, this young man approaches her. He says, "I've got an emergency. I don't have money to pay my rent this month." Maria says, "Well, what can I do to help?" He says, "I don't want you to have to do this, but I have a friend that if you have sex with him one time, he'll pay my rent this month." She says, "I don't want to do that. I'm not comfortable with it." He says, "I don't want you to have to do it. I love you." He strategically used it at that moment. Maria decided that she was going to engage in the commercial sex act. By fortune, she happened to sit through a class where her teacher talked about human trafficking. Maria was empowered to not go with him, but to go home and to report to Mom what was happening. Mom called the police, and the police ultimately responded. I was the detective that worked that case, and I'm proud to say that that young man ended up going to jail for a very long time, and Maria was never exploited. So what do we do to protect our young people against human trafficking? First and foremost, we have to educate ourselves. The more that we as adults understand the threat that exists for our kids, the better we can do to fulfill our role as their protectors, as their parents, as their guides in this life. We need to understand that if something doesn't seem right, we need to dig deeper. We need to be monitoring what they're doing online, and we need to be educating them, maintaining an open dialogue. Lastly, do not ignore the signs and react swiftly. Let's hear from a survivor parent, Susan Young.
Our eldest daughter had just turned 15. Courtney met a young boy, and they started an online relationship and friendship. He was an MS-13 gang member sent to recruit and lure young girls into the dark world of human trafficking. And then that friendship escalated into violence. And once that the gang had learned that she was trying to reach out, they needed to silence Courtney. So they took her to a secluded part of the school property. She was hit over the head, gang raped while it was videotaped. And they told her that if she ever told anyone what had happened, they would share this video with family, friends, and on the internet, thus opening the door for the traffickers to further blackmail and manipulate her into further trafficking. The situation escalated. The gang members had come and taken her from our house, and they were trafficking her in Northern Virginia. As parents, be aware of who your children are hanging out with. Make sure you know that child, their family. If you have a red flag, don't ignore that. Talk to your children about trafficking. Our family will never be the same. And if I was a parent and I had had the education that I do now, I know for a fact I would have been able to change the events that our family endured.
If we take the time to explain to them why we have these rules in place to protect them, they will usually respond in a positive way. But I have to remind you, don't have that conversation one time. Have it once a month, twice a month, even 3 times a month. Remind them that that threat exists